Hi, it's Jay from Iridescent Tarot back with some more sparkle for you. So today I am wearing Mooncat's Lost Polaroids, which is like a flat matte purple mid-tone, and Bees Knees Lacquer's Meteormancy, which is like also a mid-tone purpley pink with bluish purple sparkles. And my scent of the day is from a brand that I don't often wear or know too much about. It's called Fairy Nest, and the scent is Marshmallow Moon with notes of spun sugar, warm vanilla, and fluffy marshmallow. And again, this one is a perfume that smells like what it says on the tin. It's like kind of a crusty roasted marshmallow scent. It does have that spun sugar quality to it, and it's not like a fresh puffed marshmallow if you opened a bag of marshmallows and stuck your nose into it. I'd give it like a 6.5, 7 out of 10 because I really want that like fresh puffed marshmallow smell, and I've been looking for a good one for many years now. I've tried multiple and I haven't found the perfect one, so this was an attempt. It's pretty good. Today I wanted to participate in a tag that was posted many years ago. Katey Flowers had filmed a video with the hashtag only10decks, where she asked the question, if you could only keep 10 oracle and tarot decks out of your whole collection, what would they be? And I think, if you think about going to a desert island, you're going to pick different decks than what you would choose if somebody was like, oh, what are your top 10 favorite decks? Like, those are two very different questions. So I kind of spent a lot of time thinking about, like, if I only had 10 decks for the rest of my life, what would I want them to be? And went about it in a way that I felt like I could sustain myself on these decks for many years. So deck number 1 is my good old RWS. I felt like I wouldn't want to go for the rest of my life not having an RWS to look at, because obviously this is one of the decks where if you ask me to conjure up an image in my mind, I can do that with any of these cards. This is the system that I learned, and these are the cards that I know the best. And so my copy of RWS that I have is the Make Playing Cards Pam A from Conrad Stein with the gold edges and the linen finish. This is like my perfect version of an RWS, and if I had to only have one for the rest of my life, this deck would be it. So then if RWS is what I know in and out, then what I would want after that is a deck that I don't know in and out, that I can learn from. And that for me is the Spirit Keepers Tarot. I actually haven't even read with this deck because I need to do a full-blown deck study with this tarot, and there is just no deck out there that I'm aware of that has just the sheer volume of information that is in the guidebook for this deck. And so I felt like if I was stuck with 10 decks, I better choose some that I can still learn something new. And I know that this deck just has the most symbolism, a depth of information that I can really dig into and learn from, and this deck has that. If you've watched any videos on my channel, you are not surprised that this deck made it onto this list. Playful Heart Tarot is one of my maybe 2 soul decks, and the thought of going to a desert island and not having this deck gives me chest pain. It's probably one of the only other decks that I have that I could conjure up the imagery for the cards in my mind and know them almost as well as the RWS imagery. And this is the closest thing that I have to me in tarot deck form, and I just couldn't be without it. And this is a no-brainer for me to include on this list. The Majestic Earth Tarot for me is just nearly as close to a soul deck as the Playful Heart Tarot, but it's like the grown-up version of a soul deck for me. This deck has unending depth in its imagery, It has a beautifully succinct but poignant guidebook that helps you take the image and apply it to the tarot in a way that just like makes everything click. If I had to spend the rest of my life with 10 decks, I feel like this one, you can just stare at these images forever, and it feels like you have a little museum in your hand. And so it's one that I don't think that I would get sick of the imagery for if I had to use it for the rest of my life. So I did do 5 tarot and 5 oracle, and I feel like the last tarot and the first oracle are a married pair. So the Shimmering Veil Tarot. This deck is as close as I can get to like a connection with source in deck form. I have a few abstract art decks, and this one was like the clearest reader for me right out of the box. I got the most intuitive hits just looking at the images, and just like production wise, if I had to choose between the other abstract decks and this one has it all. It's got the holographic gilt edging, it's got like hearty delicious cardstock, it is the right size, it's got it all. And so if I had to pare it down and choose one, this would be the one. So to go with that deck, the multi-dimensional Devas would be the first oracle that I bring. I wanted to have something also abstract that I could sink my teeth into, and I feel like you can't have one without the other. So the two of these decks together would be my connection to source, to greater power, to the universe, to earth, and I could spend a lot of time with these two decks and get everything that I need from them. Bringing it from the ether back into the mundane, the Spread Machine Oracle is more of a, this is my responsible pick. Like if I'm on that desert island and I don't have any spread books, I need this deck. I need this to be able to use the rest of my decks to their full potential, because sometimes I have trouble coming up with the questions on my own, and the keywords that this deck provides me in order to be able to create really intentional spreads is invaluable. I also really enjoy the different categories, the different like suits that Kim had created in this deck, and I feel like this adds versatility and usefulness to the rest of my decks that I've chosen. So 2 Kim decks ended up in this deck collection of what I would bring to a desert island, because everybody needs a good hug, and no deck gives me a better hug than the Heart Align Affirmations Oracle, and it's a good catch-all, goes with anything, is supportive without being coddly. It's got like a good number of cards, so you don't end up seeing the same thing over and over again, and I just thought it was a good affirmation option for my desert island picks. I couldn't be without Reclaim. So Reclaim is another deck that has a very specific purpose, and none of the other decks that I have do what Reclaim does. When you're in a position that you need Reclaim, like nothing else will do. And it's a deck that I resisted for a long time. I didn't have a huge interest in it until after like hundreds of videos of Cassie from A Riffle in Time talked about this deck, and finally I was convinced that it was one that I needed in my collection, and she was right. She was right 100%. I'm so glad that she talked about it so many times, because it took that many times to convince me that this deck would be useful for me, and I just can't believe that I resisted for so long, because now I can't imagine being without it, and it would make it to my 10 decks that I would bring onto a desert island to have for the rest of my life. Lastly, a deck for wonder walking. So if I were truly stuck on an island and could only have 10 decks, I would want this deck. I would want to explore the island and use the prompts on these cards and the information in the guidebook to explore my surroundings, be present, meditate. And it's another one that has a very specific purpose that is difficult to recreate in the absence of the deck. And so that's how I had to take this prompt, is like, what would I not be able to live without if I could only have 10? Like, which deck's absence would I feel the most? And this one was for sure one of those. All right, so that's it for my only 10 decks hashtag. I have been wanting to do this tag for so long, and I'm really grateful that I'm finally able to participate in these types of tags. Hopefully now I will be not 3 years late. All right, talk to you later. Signing out.